My name is Denise Walker, I am 34 years old, and if you ask my family to describe me, they'll probably use words like quiet, plain, or Melanie's favorite insult, cheap. But cheap isn't what I am. Not even close. And if you stick with me through this story, you'll understand exactly why. By the end of that dinner party, nobody was laughing at me anymore. The Walker family dinner parties were legendary. Picture this: my parents' home in Atlanta, the dining room glowing with candles, a massive oak table set with silverware polished so bright you could see your reflection. The smell of roasted garlic, butter, and pecan pie filled the air. Relatives poured in from every corner of Georgia, cousins, uncles, aunts, family friends, everyone dressed to impress. I slipped quietly into my seat near the end of the table, smoothing the wrinkles from my simple navy dress. No sequins. No designer label. Just neat, modest me. Melanie, of course, sat at the center of the table like it was her throne. She wore a scarlet cocktail dress that clung to her figure, diamond earrings sparkling every time she turned her head to make sure someone was watching. She thrived on attention, and she got it. Always. Halfway through dinner, she pounced. "Denise," she called, her voice dripping with that familiar mix of fake innocence and sharp cruelty, "where's your gift? Don't tell me you brought one of your budget specials again." Laughter rippled through the table like a wave. I pressed my fork down into the steak on my plate to keep my hands from shaking. "My gift's right here," I said calmly, nodding toward the envelope sitting quietly at the far end of the table. Melanie tilted her head, smirk spreading wider. "Oh, an envelope. How exciting." "Don't be so mean, Mel," my mom said softly, though she didn't sound too concerned. "Denise is thoughtful with her gifts." "Thoughtful?" Melanie snorted. "Please. Last Christmas she gave me a candle she probably picked up from the clearance bin at Target." The table roared again. Even Uncle Bill had tears in his eyes from laughing. I clenched my jaw, forcing a thin smile, but inside, I felt like I was shrinking into nothing. "Well, here we go," Melanie's voice cut through the clinking of glasses like a knife. She tilted her wine glass toward me and smirked. "The miser's contribution." The table exploded in laughter. My cousins slapped their thighs, a couple of uncles wheezed into their bourbon glasses, and even my dad chuckled, shaking his head. Phones were out, recording, streaming, immortalizing the humiliation. I sat frozen, my heart pounding in my ears, staring at the plain brown envelope in my hands. Every eye was on me. Every laugh was at me. But what nobody in that room knew was that inside that envelope wasn't a cheap gift, wasn't some clearance bin candle, wasn't another excuse for my sister to call me boring. No, inside that envelope was something that would change everything. Something that would make them drop their phones, choke on their laughter, and see me in a way they never had before. And the best part? Melanie, my beautiful, cruel, spotlight-chasing younger sister, was about to watch her entire world collapse in front of her. If you've ever had a family member humiliate you in front of others, drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. You see, Melanie and I were different from the very beginning. When we were kids, if our parents gave us $20, Melanie would run to the mall and blow it on lip gloss or a t-shirt she'd wear once. I'd tuck mine away in a shoebox under my bed. By the time she was broke, I was counting bills. She loved attention, I loved security. She begged for brand-name sneakers, I wore the same pair until they fell apart. She demanded the spotlight, I stayed in the background. And yet, somehow, her way was always the one that got praised. The loud one, the flashy one, the fun one. As we got older, the gap only widened. Melanie married young, to a man who drove a Mercedes he couldn't afford, and whisked her off on weekend getaways he paid for with maxed-out credit cards. She flaunted her life on Instagram, all filters and hashtags, #blessed, #luxury life. I stayed single. Modest apartment. Old Honda. A quiet life. The nickname Miser started as a joke. Then it became a label. And eventually, it became my identity in the family. But here's the truth, I wasn't poor. I wasn't cheap. I was careful. I saved, I invested, I worked smart. While Melanie was drowning in debt, I was quietly building a fortune nobody knew about. And that night at the dinner party, all her laughter, all her little digs, it was fuel for what was about to happen. Have you ever been judged for being careful with your money while others wasted theirs? Smash that like button if you can relate. By the time dessert plates were being cleared, Melanie wasn't done. Oh no, she was just getting started. Denise, she leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine. Don't you ever get tired of living so plain? I put down my fork slowly. I like my life just fine. Oh, come on, she pressed, loud enough for everyone to hear. You're 34, no husband, no kids, no excitement. What do you even do with all that money you're supposedly saving? Knit socks. The table howled. Even my dad chuckled under his breath, muttering, now, as if that would soften the blow. Inside, I bit down so hard on my cheek I tasted blood. I wanted to scream. To call her out. To remind her that her ex-husband left her in debt so deep, she had to move back in with our parents for 6 months. But I didn't. Because I knew my time was coming. Finally, it was time for gifts. One by one, my parents unwrapped presents, bottles of wine, gift cards, framed family photos. Laughter and applause followed each gift. Then Melanie, of course, stood dramatically, holding 2 glossy gift bags. For Dad, she announced, pulling out an expensive designer watch. And for Mom, she added, revealing a silk scarf from a luxury boutique. The room clapped like she'd just won an award. Then all eyes turned to me. Melanie leaned forward with a wicked grin. And now the miser's contribution. Phones lifted again. My humiliation was seconds away from being immortalized online. But I stayed calm. I reached for the plain brown envelope at the end of the table and slid it across to my parents. This is from me, I said softly. I hope it means something. Dad raised a brow, clearly skeptical. Mom took the envelope, frowning slightly at its simplicity. Go ahead, I said. Open it. The room leaned in, expecting another cheap gag gift, expecting another round of laughter at my expense. Melanie smirked, already rehearsing her next punchline. But as my parents pulled the papers from that envelope, the laughter slowed. The smirk slipped off Melanie's face. The air shifted. Because what they were about to see wasn't just a gift. It was a reckoning. The room went still as my parents pulled the documents out of the envelope. The laughter slowed, then stopped completely. You could hear the soft rustle of papers as my father unfolded the stack. He squinted, adjusted his glasses, and cleared his throat. What's this? Go ahead, I said, my voice calm, almost steady. Read it out loud. The room leaned closer, eager for what they thought would be a punchline. Melanie smirked, swirling her wine like she was waiting for the grand joke. Dad's eyes flicked across the page, and then his voice faltered. This is. Mom leaned over his shoulder. Her hands flew to her mouth. The lake house. Gasps echoed around the table. I nodded. Yes. The Walker family lake house. The one that went into foreclosure last year. I bought it back. Paid in full. It's in your names now, Mom and Dad's. It's yours again. A hush swept through the dining room. Melanie's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Her smirk vanished. Wait. What? I turned to her, meeting her wide eyes. Remember how you said it was too bad we lost the lake house? How you told everyone there was nothing we could do? While you were busy showing off handbags and vacations, I worked quietly with a lawyer. And now it's ours again. Mom's eyes brimmed with tears. Denise, I don't even know what to say. Dad set the papers down, his hands trembling. This is unbelievable. His gaze lifted to me, and for the first time in years, I saw it: pride. The energy shifted instantly. Those who had been laughing at me seconds ago now stared in awe. Cousins whispered to each other. Uncles who'd chuckled earlier cleared their throats awkwardly. Phones lowered as people realized this wasn't a comedy moment, it was history in the making. But the best part? Watching Melanie unravel. She let out a strained laugh, her voice brittle. Wow, sis. Good for you. I guess all those boring nights alone finally paid off. I tilted my head, studying her. That wasn't the only thing in the envelope. Her eyes widened. What? Dad shuffled through the papers, his jaw dropping further. There's more? Yes, I said. There's also the trust fund. $2 million. Set aside for your retirement. You'll never have to worry about bills again. The table erupted in shock. Someone dropped a fork with a loud clatter. My cousin Clara let out a low whistle. Melanie's face turned crimson. $2 million. Where did you even get that kind of money? I smiled faintly. You've called me miser all my life. Maybe it's time you realized saving isn't the same as lacking. Some of us know how to build instead of burn. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Clara leaned toward another cousin and whispered loudly, she's been playing the long game. Melanie's mask cracked. She slammed her glass down, her voice shrill. You can't just show up with money and think it changes who you are. You're still stingy, still pathetic, still. Actually, I cut in sharply, it changes everything. Because I know the truth, Melanie. About the loans you took out in Mom and Dad's names. About the credit card you secretly opened under Dad's account 2 years ago. The room froze. Melanie's face drained of color. That's a lie. It's not. I kept my gaze locked on hers. I have the statements. I gave copies to Mom and Dad's lawyer. You nearly destroyed their credit just so you could keep posting your fake life on Instagram. A stunned murmur spread around the table. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Phones angled back up, not to laugh at me, but to record her downfall. Mom's voice trembled. Melanie, is this true? Melanie's lips parted but no sound came out. Her silence was louder than any confession. Dad pushed back his chair, his face red with anger. We trusted you. Tears welled in my mother's eyes as she whispered, how could you? What would you have done if your sister betrayed your parents like this? Tell me in the comments. Melanie shot up from her seat, pointing at me with shaking hands. This is your fault. You've always been jealous of me. You can't stand that people like me more, so you're trying to destroy me. I leaned back, calm. Jealous? Of what, Mel? Of your debt. Your ex-husband who left you with nothing. Or maybe your reputation, that's crumbling right now. I gestured toward the phones pointed at her. Do you think the world will admire you when they see this? Gasps filled the room. Her face twisted in panic. She grabbed her purse, muttering curses, and stormed toward the door. The click of her heels echoed like the sound of her empire collapsing. Silence lingered long after she left. My parents sat staring at the papers, their hands trembling as if afraid the gift might vanish. Finally, Dad turned to me, his voice thick. Denise, how can we ever thank you? You don't need to, I said softly. Just know that I never wanted to embarrass anyone. I just wanted you to be safe. To know you're cared for. Mom reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Her voice cracked. We see you now, Denise. We really see you. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt it, the weight lifting. The label, miser, burning away. The days that followed were brutal for Melanie. Clips from that dinner spread like wildfire. On Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you name it. People captioned it with hashtags like #luxuryliar and #miserwins. Her humiliation became a viral spectacle. Brands she'd partnered with cut ties. Friends stopped answering her calls. Even her carefully curated followers turned on her. She tried calling me once. Her voice shook on voicemail, "Denise, please, can we talk?" But I didn't respond. Some bridges are better left burned. As for me, something shifted. I didn't flaunt my money, but I no longer hid it. I let people see I was stable, capable, respected. My parents looked at me with pride now, not pity. Looking back, I realize revenge doesn't always come from rage. Sometimes it comes from patience. From letting people underestimate you until the truth is undeniable. Melanie mocked me, humiliated me, made me the family joke. But that night, I turned the tables. And I learned something powerful. The richest person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who stands quietly, waiting, until the truth speaks for itself. I walked away from that dinner party with my dignity intact. Melanie? She was left choking on the bitterness of her own downfall. And that, my friends, was the sweetest revenge of all. If you enjoyed my story of revenge and resilience, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.